People think, well, I don't have the resources. I don't have money. I don't have the name. I don't have the network. Everything you need is right in front of you. You just have to figure it out. Life is never a straight line. And if it is, that's a really bad indicator, because flat line means you're dead. So when we have these moments, which is life, just always look for the redirection.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So tell us about the work that actually, before we get into the work that you do now, I'd like to know a bit of Kristins' backstory, because you have an amazing story. Can you share a little bit about that before we get into it?
Yeah, really quickly. Widowed, single mother of three amazing 20-something-year-old and one teenage girl kids. Lost my husband to cancer almost 10 years ago. Found myself in a position to have to reinvent who I was in the world and what I was all about, and still be a full-time mom first and foremost. So I was in commercial real estate development for 16 years. By the time I had become a widow, my firm had closed due to the recession at the time. And really looking at what were the options, what were the opportunities, and identifying that there was a need in helping startups and entrepreneurs start businesses. So I was doing branding and marketing for those clients in the Detroit metro area. Automotive industry was hit very, very hard, like many industries during that recession, and did that for a handful of years. And my path crossed with AJ and Roy Vaden, and worked with them at our previous company, and then left there and we started Brand Builders. There was 8 of us all together that started the foundation of Brand Builders Group to help people build their personal brands. And I personally have worked with people in 11 different countries to date. So it's been pretty fabulous, including yourself. Yeah.
Yes, indeed, indeed. So before we get into the work that you do with Brand Builders Group, I've got to ask a few more questions about what you just shared, Kristen. A lot of what we talk about on PivotMe is sort of these critical moments where everything changed. You just mentioned a couple of them right there. And first, not only were you widowed, which is obviously significant and huge and so impactful, but then the industry that you're in got hit hard and you had to go leap into a brand new industry. That takes a ton of courage. I mean, what was that like? Talk about navigating uncertainty.
Yeah, I think the one thing that the cancer journey and being a caregiver for over 4 years taught me was there's no time to figure it out. It's you do what you need to do. I've had many people say to me, I don't think I could have done what you did. Well, you don't know until being strong is all you've got. And, I just really focused on what were the priorities, and really everything for me is grounded in gratitude. While life was difficult at that time, there was still so much to be grateful for, that I had opportunities sitting right in front of me. And I think it's about being resourceful. People think, well, I don't have the resources. I don't have money. I don't have the name. I don't have the network. Everything you need is right in front of you. You just have to figure it out. So while I was hit numerous times and pushed down, every time I was pushed down was another opportunity to figure it out and be redirected. PivotMe is a perfect word or name for certainly part of my journey. And I've landed exactly where I'm meant to be. And had I not experienced all of those things, I don't know that I'd be here doing this, talking to you right now. Yeah.
Sure. So one thing I want to point out is for those who are listening, and maybe for those who are watching right now that are having a particularly difficult time in life, it doesn't necessarily feel like growth in the moment. I mean, you're saying, hey, I've got gratitude and I've got this perspective, but I'm sure in the moment, it sure as hell doesn't feel like that.
Yeah, I think what happens is, and it's very easy to be victimized by our circumstances. Certainly this last year has put a lot of people in the space of self-reflection and really wondering, am I in the right space? And I think what happens is, rather than say, why is this happening to me? Really just figure out, like, what is this teaching me? What is this giving me an opportunity to do? And that's a mindset thing. And here's how it is. Like when I even work with my clients in resiliency, it's give yourself a timeline, give yourself permission to feel it, to be scared, angry, whatever it is you're feeling. But then once that timeline is over that you've set for yourself, you gotta pivot. You gotta make the mindful choice to redirect yourself to what's possible. Because without those setbacks and failures and losses and disappointments, I don't think we really grow. I use the analogy with my oldest son when he was in high school. Life is never a straight line. And if it is, that's a really bad indicator, because flat line means you're dead. So when we have these moments, which is life, just always look for the redirection.
Always look for the redirection. That is powerful. Earlier, you're saying about it's not about your resources. I always like the phrase, it's not about your resources, it's about your resourcefulness.
Yep.
So
Tony Robbins all the way.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. How does that experience, how does your resourcefulness and your resilience, how does that influence what you do today? And then let's actually get into what you do today. But how do you bring that into, whether it's working with clients, whether it's speaking, how does that influence it?
So brand builders, we all have our own personal brand, just like our clients. We were never clients of the company. The foundational 8 were not. And it's because we wanted to know what the process was like. We wanted to intimately relate to all of our clients. We know how difficult this is. This is a lot of work to build a personal brand. If anyone thinks they're going to build a brand in 30 days, as you know firsthand, that isn't true.
More like 2 years.
So I'll give you an example. So Remarkable Resilience is my program that I work with people. And what I've found in working with clients in personal branding is a lot of them, no matter how successful they are, still have this self-worth issue. A lot of them are like, imposter syndrome. Who do I think I am? How is my story? Does my story really matter? And cultivating cross-branding, my personal brand of Remarkable Resilience with my business brand, which is Brand Builders Group, I'm best able to serve my clients. The problem I solve in the world is discouragement. My message is, don't give up on yourself, on your dreams, your goals. God, if you're faith-based. And my one word, uniqueness, is resilient. As you know, we call that a brand positioning statement. Those statements are very, very clear. And it's very clear in my messaging. And so this is what we help our clients do. In this past year, March 15th to 2020, I sent out an email to all of my active clients at the time saying, free calls this weekend. Let's see where you're at. And it was funny. You popped into my head because I said, I want to help you pivot. We had a lot of people who were speakers who didn't, the speaking world was at a standstill. People were losing figures in a matter of days. And my foundation in resiliency and helping and supporting them in reinventing what speaking looked like or other revenue streams really served my clients. Again, I've never known an entrepreneur who wasn't discouraged at one point or another.
Sure. Yeah, it's the highs are very high and the lows are pretty low. I could see how in 2020 your resilience and also just your amazing ability to pivot in times of uncertainty really would lend itself to helping people last year. Well, currently still a little bit. I could see.
We have a 1 at the end. It hasn't changed all that much. And in some ways, in our business, while there was a lot of uncertainty about people investing themselves, it was an opportunity for people who in the corporate world, or they were doing something entrepreneurial that wasn't really working for them, everyone was at home. They were forced to sit and think and reflect. And so it was a really big opportunity to help those entrepreneurial minds who never stepped into that because they were in the trap of collecting a paycheck and the style, into really looking at what was possible for them. And it's been a really rewarding last year for us as a company, for our clients.
One thing that I know you know him as well, Mark Keen and I discussed, is that though when we started going down the road of last year, we'll say when COVID first hit, though that might be a unique scenario for us, times of massive uncertainty is not. Navigating difficult times is not. And all the same tools, so many people focus on, well, this is a brand new thing, and how do we navigate it? It's like, no, struggle is not brand new. Uncertainty is not brand new. Ups and downs of the market and business. Yeah, it was the perfect storm, but really it was just massive uncertainty. And how do we navigate that? Let's pull all the tools that we know that works in those times. It might be a little bit more pronounced. We might have to connect some of those tools, but it's the same situation if we look at it that way. And it puts the power back in our hands. Otherwise, we feel disempowered to navigate this time.
Yeah, taking control of your own direction or destination or destiny is really important. And with entrepreneurial minds, they're risk takers by nature. Tax is not uncommon. But again, it was an opportunity for the people who were not happy in what they were doing, knowing they didn't have job security per se, really step into their own and really embrace how they could serve those who need them in the world.
Did you see a lot of that? Did you see a lot of people pivoting last year? Yeah, but
yeah. Even so, current clients who had, very heavy speaking business pivoted into virtual offerings and recreating what speaking looked like. But then also just new people who were like, look, I've been in this job for 20 years, 15 years, 10 years. I make a really good living, but I'm sitting here at home looking at four walls saying, is this what I really want to do? Is this what I'm called to do? And I think there's a big movement in all over the world in people wanting to have an impact, people wanting to make a difference and have money be a result. This is a service-based, inquiry and journey. And, I say it all the time when I do introduction calls, free brand calls, and I say, look, if you said, I want to make $10 million, we're not for you. But if you said, I want to impact 1 million lives and make $10 million doing it, we've got you. And it's really, we call it mission-based messengers. So it's very important that people understand that personal branding is not self-promotion. It's not arrogance. It's how can you clearly and effectively communicate to your identified audience how you can help them and serve them.
Yeah. Yeah. Talk about why that's so important. Like a big piece of that is identifying your avatar and making sure that you're talking to your avatar. Explain what an avatar is and why it's so important to speak directly to them.
Absolutely. So an avatar is a fictitious character, but the ideal character. You get to design, if you could bottle this person to serve them and help them prosper and grow, whatever that area is, what does that person look like? A lot of times our clients will, model it after a client that they wish they had 1,000 of. Sometimes they could just create a melting pot of all different types of characters into one. Sure. Remember, all your content is for one person. It's not for the masses. So if you're writing a book, you're writing a book for one person. If you are speaking on a stage, you're talking directly to one person. Social media content, same thing, podcasting. And the reason why is that's where you create connection and relatedness and you build trust. When you have watered down focus, you have diluted results. Rory says it all the time. And it's true. Pick a lane, pick who you're going to serve, start there, become known for that, and then you can expand from there.
Sure. And that's a huge deviation. I want to point out that's a huge deviation, especially from the corporate world, because we speak more to the masses. Like, well, we don't want to isolate, or we want to pick up the business in that market or that market. So what I found coming from the corporate world and moving into, okay, let me take a look at my own personal brand, that was a huge adjustment for me because you come from sales and ops and you're like, no, we might miss business on this, or we might isolate someone over here that could be a new market for us. That's a big shift. And instead you're there to serve this one kind of person, because I always say you can't ask the question, can I help someone? Because the answer is probably yes, you're resourceful, you can help people, but should I help this person? Who's the person that I can most profoundly impact? And if we don't only speak to that one person, then the impact we make is completely diluted. And it's kind of like that like and repel thing a lot of people talk about. Sometimes your message is going to repel certain people. Sometimes your message is going to go, I don't like her because she cusses. I don't like him because he's too aggressive. Some people are going to like John Maxwell and other people are like Grant Cardone, and that's okay. It's supposed to be that way. Yeah. And so that's a really important thing, especially if you're coming from the corporate world. Know that you'll probably have the tendency to want to speak to everybody, and then your message isn't as hard impacting as it could be.
Yeah, here's a caveat to that. And you've experienced this firsthand, going from the masses to like a really focused, group or client. It's very intimate. It's feel very exposed.
Sure.
When you're talking to masses and you're in the corporate world, you can kind of hide a little bit. You can hide out. It's not so much about look at how I can serve you. It's like, this is how we can serve all of you.
Sure.
This is a very uncomfortable, vulnerable journey, but do it scared anyways, because the reward is huge. It's absolutely huge.
Oh, that's so good. I got to write that down. Transitioning from the we can serve all of you to I can serve you. Wow, that is profound. That's succinctly exactly that transition that has to happen. And to your point, that was something that I struggled with as well. I may have just had a vulnerability call this morning about someone in my keynote and saying, you got to add a little bit more of your backstory. I was like, how about we start where we are and just move forward? So Yeah, we're still students of this. So, okay, so talk about what a personal brand is and why it is so important.
Sure. So as I mentioned earlier, it's really about how can you serve an identified audience, but it's how can I be of service to you, just like we mentioned a few moments ago. And we help people get really clear on who they are in that identified world and grouping of people. While we
Mhm.
want to serve 7.2 billion or 7.7 billion people in the world, we
Mhm.
just can't. It's not even physically possible. But we help people with strategy on identifying and creating. We call it a golden grid. It's like your business modeling. Once we have your brand positioning statement down, we've got clarity as the foundation. Then we identify who it is you're going to serve. And we say we're a little different. We say you can have up to 3 avatars that have like
Okay.
a core. What happens is people have a mindset block of, well, wait a minute. If I just serve that 35-year-old woman married with 2 kids, I'm going to exclude serving all these other people. Not really true. It's really we're creating a tangible, because it's much easier to write to one person
Mhm.
or one person than it is to all the people that you don't know anything about. So we get really, really, really intimate and granular on like the things that they need, what they're looking for, what are their goals, what are they passionate about. One of the things that people really have an aversion to is social media. They're afraid to show up,
For
visibility.
sure.
People can't do business with you unless they know who you are. Bottom line, I personally had to have visibility coaching because I was hiding out too. I was teaching people not to hide out because the fear is I don't want anyone to see me fail, or I'm going to get judged. I'm going to get
Mhm.
thought of as this arrogant, obnoxious, self-promoting individual.
Ding, ding.
Yeah,
Yes.
and that's not personal branding. Personal
Mhm.
branding, again, is just a simplified, clear way to help and serve those that you've identified. It's from a place of service all day long. But in the golden grid, we look at primary and secondary and ancillary business models. We look at short term. What are you going to do in the meantime to serve and make money while you're building out the bigger picture? It typically will take about 9 to 12 months to be able to launch a brand in
Mhm.
reality. This is
Yeah.
an ongoing relationship. We've been working with you a long time, and
Mhm.
you see that firsthand. You know that firsthand, and
Right.
it can be frustrating. I mean, I've had clients just say, "Look, I had an expectation that once I launch, people are going to come banging my door down, or what? This has taken way longer than I thought it would." And
Sure.
the hardest part is telling people to be patient, and like
Yeah.
there's a plan here, because we go into visual identity. Once you get the foundation done, you got to be visible. So you got to get some appropriate photography done. You've got to
Mhm.
get a website done. You've got to, get clear on like what it is that you're going to offer. Are you going to write a book? Are you going to be a paid keynote? Are you going to have just virtual offerings? Are you going to be a one-on-one? So all of this has to be worked through. The
Sure.
reason that personal branding is important, just like a business brand, for example, you want people, when they hear your name or see your name, you
Mhm.
want people who are looking for you in the world to truly get a clear understanding what it is that you can do for them and with them. And without personal branding, it's just a bunch of content. So when I go back to social media, one of the things that we do is we identify what are the questions your
Mhm.
avatar has.
Mhm.
We say, hey, let's do 52. Remember that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
People are like, that's daunting. Oh my gosh, 52. Why 52? Because we're very methodical. We're simplistically planned out. Those questions that you answer in the format of a video or a
Mhm.
live or content on your social media is there every week. It's 52 weeks of content. That is your solid
Mhm.
foundation of content. We're not going to say to you, hey, next year, give me 52 more. You
Sure.
can organically post just like you do and do lives and do stories,
Mhm.
all these different things.
Yeah.
But the consistency is super important. People have a habit of they'll post 20 times in a week and then no one hears from them for a month
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
it's either they don't want to, they don't feel like it, they're frustrated. So what we really encourage people to do is if you have an adversity to that, then invest in a VA or a media person that will do it for you. The
Sure.
investment far outweighs the return. When you don't like to do something, we tend to not do it or we
Mhm.
avoid doing it, and that's counterproductive to being able to build your brand awareness. The other thing that people make a mistake in especially in the startup mode, is they say yes to every opportunity, thinking it's going to build brand awareness quicker. And that's not true. If you're saying yes to every opportunity, that's not a fit.
Sure.
You have to be selective in what you do. I'm on the PivotMe, podcast because your audience is a shared listening audience of mine. So I am now connecting and putting myself in front of all the, April Garcia followers and fans in hopes that just one or two say, hey, you know what? I think I need brand builders' help in building a brand. Majority of your clients are entrepreneurial, but I didn't go on a plumbing podcast.
Sure.
Because there's really nothing I can do to serve a plumber unless he wants to brand his own business. But for the most part, it just wouldn't make sense.
Yeah.
The learning of alignments is important.
Sure. A couple of things I want to point out there. One is the idea of like any media is good media. Well, again, our time is finite, so be very particular about where you're investing your time. To Kristen's point, I'm so used to calling you Casey. I'm just going to have to call you Casey, or else you're going to trip me up every time. Casey. So 2 points I want to make. One is, Keith Cunningham famously said, more entrepreneurs die of indigestion instead of starvation. They're trying to do too much. They're trying to take in too many clients. They're trying to do too many events like what you're talking about. You've got to be very strategic about, hey, does their audience align with me? Does this thing I'm about to do really make the most impact? So I love that you pointed that out. One thing I want to address too is, if you're thinking, well, do I need a personal brand? Here's the truth. If you haven't built your personal brand, don't worry, you already have one. Be intentional about building it. It's the things that they say about you when you're not in the room, that's your personal brand. And so you can either intentionally build it or just let it unfold naturally. But it's about building that reputation, but also building that impact, and they go hand in hand. Because I see a lot of people go, well, how important is the personal brand? I found out it's incredibly important, because yes, you've got this brand out there, and even if you're in the corporate space, we do have a few corporate listeners. I'm just thinking about one client in particular, real time, as a subject matter expert in a field in speech analytics. Her personal brand is very important to this piece. It's critical to her positioning herself as the SME. She does amazing work. She's brilliant, but that personal brand has got to go hand in hand, because the corporation she's working with is not going to build that for her. It's incumbent upon her to build it, and what will follow: more impact, more money, more speaking opportunities. All these things happen, but first you have to build it. So if you're not building a personal brand, one is being built for you. And I would encourage you to stop and think about, is it the right message I want to be out there? And if not, what can I do to change it?
Yeah, people are so quick to go to content, to build the website, to do the social, get the photos. But here's the thing, using analogy, you would never build a beach house on toothpicks. There's no stability or foundation there. Creating content without the clarity of the problem you solve, that ideal client, like who it is you're serving, what's your messaging, and what's your uniqueness, like why you, is going to have you like playing darts in the dark. And I come across many people who are at such a high level of frustration when I do like free brand calls, that I have to almost earn their trust all over again, because they've done things that they thought misinformed in the past, and they've invested a lot of money. And so they're gun shy, they're frustrated, they're not sure. And I think we do a really good job by just simplifying the process. It's not an easy process. You know this. It's a lot of work. But we do simplify it in a way everyone and anyone can build a brand. And we really think about 5 factors. We think about learning style first. We look at, of course, budget. We look at urgency, time commitment. Like, what is your time that you can commit to building your brand? I tell people, put personal branding on your calendar, just like you're going to go to the doctor, or you would never cancel on a client. Cancel on yourself. This is really, really important, that people are willing to invest the time, more so than the money, into building that brand. Because if there's confusion in your content, then there's confusion in who you're able to connect with. So it's important.
Yeah, absolutely. And confused clients don't purchase. They're not as profoundly impacted, and they don't tend to purchase whatever service or product that could totally radically change their lives. You're not
Mhm.
going to connect with them if they're confused.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly right. We work, there are people who are experts in their space that we actually share their content with. Peter Sheehan is one. Sheehan's Wall. It's really going from unknown to known. And what is that? And again, it's like picking a lane. A great example of that would be The Rock. Dwayne Johnson right now is like the number one social media Instagram influencer in the world. Why?
Mm-hmm.
Because he's got a really solid personal brand. But how did he begin? He began as a football player. People think he started in wrestling. He didn't. He was
I
a
didn't know
football,
that either.
so he
Huh.
was a football player, became known as a football player, became a wrestler, became known as a wrestler, then became an actor, then became, he has his
Mhm.
own production company. Now he owns like a tequila company. And so he added things along the way as his reputation was growing. Oprah's another example. She was a
Mhm.
and a journalist, and then she was a talk show host, and then she had a media company, then she got into retail, now she has a network, and she had her magazine. There's a lot of examples in a business world. Amazon, they started off as a bookseller. Now Amazon
Mhm.
is everything they can.
Sure, sure.
They became known as the best in their space, and then became the best in more
Then they
spaces.
expanded out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can we talk about, it's a really valid point, is let's talk about a couple of actual personal brands that people might be able to identify with. So maybe it's whether it's Brene Brown or Dave Ramsey or people that have very clear personal brands that if you're not familiar with that language, you may not be calling it that, but you already.
Yeah, that is exactly right. So, it's very clear that the problem Brene Brown solves, is sorry,
Um,
shame.
oh,
Shame.
okay, shame. Yeah. Shame
Yeah,
research. Yeah.
yeah. And her solution to shame is vulnerability, right?
Mhm.
Getting
Yeah.
clear on, hey, look, in order for me to get over the shame, I have to be vulnerable to do so. I have to take the steps. And vulnerability is courage. It's not weakness. She
Mhm.
has perfected that. Her messaging
Yeah.
is so loud and clear that everyone's waiting for her next thing. That is a solid personal brand. Dave
Yeah.
Ramsey is all about, getting out of debt. Now he's about cash flow. So,
Mhm.
he was in the getting out of debt thing for 30 plus years. He had a
Mhm.
foundational focus, was super brilliant in making sure that he was able to offer Peace University through thousands of church-based environments and
Yeah.
communities. And now he's expanding from there. Um, Gosh, there's so many examples that we use. Ellen is a great example too. She
Yeah.
started off as a comedian, then she got into, her talk show, and then she got
Mhm.
into, being a person taking a stand for LGBTQ, and then, she got into everything retail. And again, cultivating, becoming known for one thing, you've got the strong following, and then when you release the next big thing, people are
Mhm.
right there waiting for it. That's really,
Yeah.
really solid.
Yeah. Those are great examples. And again, we just may not be calling it a personal brand, but that's really what it is. So walk me through. So obviously I'm a huge fan of Brand Builders Group. I've been with you guys probably for 2 years. We've worked together and it's been amazing experience. Walk us through the process of working with Brand Builders Groups and then kind of the sections that you guys focus on, like the keynote speaking or world-class speaking, I think it is. And you help with the digital course, like all the pieces that you guys focus on and who you're right for.
Sure. So the first step is always identifying your brand DNA. This is what
Mm-hmm.
you have a couple different ways to do that. You attend an event, you did that,
Mm-hmm.
or you can do a one-on-one if that's your learning style and your preference. But finding your brand DNA is a foundational piece. In fact, it is mandatory if you want to go the branding journey with us, because without that clarity, we're going to be spinning our wheels with you and there'll be a lot of frustration. We have a lot of specialty programs. In fact, right now we offer 13 programs. By the end of 2021, we'll expand it to 15 events and programs. All of these events are either an event foundation. Right now, they're all real-time live on Zoom, and we have small 6-to-1 ratio breakout rooms. We've
Mm-hmm.
never had an event, which were normally in Nashville due to COVID. We just pivoted, as in the April Garcia language, we pivoted literally in 3 days. I co-led our first real-time virtual event, and it was so well received that we can actually serve more people in our events than filling a room in Nashville. We don't know if we'll go back to physical live, but right now,
Nashville. I
I
miss
know.
Nashville.
I miss you too. There's always that beautiful component of community, being able to be with each other. But so we have 4 phases, right? The first phase is branding, finding your DNA, captivating content, which is where you create your body of work. It also acts as a framework to write a book if you want to be an author. And world-class presentation craft. Those are the 3 events or one-on-ones that complete the phase 1 of branding. Then phase 2, marketing. Creating your, building your revenue stream, which is like your website and your content and your, how are you going to price for your services and all of those things. We also get into bestseller launch, and we also get into keynote calendar. If you're going to be a speaker, how are you going to market that? Really important. Phase 3,
the business of speaking is huge.
Absolutely. Phase 3 is about selling. Okay, now you've done all the work. A lot of people have an adversity to selling. So how are you going to do that in the virtual world, and how are you going to do that face to face? And then the 4th phase is scaling. Okay, I'm selling, but what is scalable? What can I monetize on and what's not? We know in the short term, one-on-one is great. It's instant. You can create a business as you have very quickly doing that, but it is not scalable because there's only one you, and there's only so many hours in a day. But if you can take what you're doing one-on-one and create opportunity to work with more people, offering different levels, as we've talked about, we call it collapsible offer, bundle offers, then let's do that. But how are you going to scale up? So that's really, really important. And then we have a series of personal development programs that we offer on mindset, and or getting more granular on specific things that we teach about. For example, the 15 Ps and the we call it the content diamond, which is how we help you put content on social media. Outside of the core 4 phases in the personal development, we also offer brand implementation services where we work with our preferred vendor partners, website development, photography, visual identity, integration. So we outsource that collectively in partnership with our preferred vendors for our clients. And that can be, a pick or choose of a wide variety of offerings. But in order for us to even make those introductions, that finding your brand DNA is the foundation. We need clarity before we can serve you.
Yeah, it's huge. And this isn't just a box that you check. This was, and you kind of mentioned this at the beginning, but I really want to emphasize, it's not just a box you checked. I was having a conversation with someone this morning, and we were talking about, this is your life's work. So whatever that is, so whether that you're a business advisor, you're a podcaster, you're an author, you're a speaker, you're a C-level executive at some company, this is really about your life's work. It's worth it. It's worth it to take some time, both sort of the mental real estate and the financial investment as well. But it's worth it to kind of be able to boil down what you've been doing for a long time that you're crazy passionate about. Take the time to actually boil that down and then package it in a way that makes the most sense for people and will deliver the most impact. I can't emphasize how important that is.
And so one of the things we say, and this absolutely applies to you, who you are today is best suited to serve who you once were. More times than not, our personal brands are built on our story, whatever that is.
Line one more time. That was so good.
Who you are today is best suited to serve who you once were. So remarkable resilience didn't just get created out of the sky. It was a series of chapters and events in my life, both professionally and personally, that I became known for getting up and brushing myself off. And people were always drawn to, how do you do that? I had people say to me all the time, I could never do what you've done. Here's the truth. You don't know until being strong is all you've got, as I mentioned before. And realizing that your story has value. Either we have people have like the most catastrophic experiences and really interesting past. And then we have other people who say, well, nothing really extraordinary has ever happened to me. I'm kind of boring. My story doesn't really matter. But the reality is if you're looking at building a personal brand, it's because you're drawn to serve people in that space. So it's really important. A lot of times people will build a brand. We talk about, what are you passionate about? Normally when people hear passionate, they think about, what are the things that make me feel good? What are the things I love to do? But a lot of times more than not, it's what are the things that tick you off that you want to be a stand for change. A lot of people build brands based on injustices and inequalities and unserved areas. So super, super important. You bottled what you experienced over the years in the professional world, building businesses and selling, top 1%. You now serve people in that space and teaching them what you did yourself along the way, what works, what doesn't work, and be extremely relatable. You know what burnout's all about. What it's like to miss out on things with your family in the face of building a business, but you have perfected a system that you can have, be able to have your family be first and everything else around it comes second. And that's really, really powerful, especially with this new normal that we all have, where families everywhere, our loved ones are relying on us. People are doing Zoom calls that they'd never think in a million years to be, doing them in their home with the kids running around the background. But guess what? That's our new normal. How can you best serve those so that you can have that time with your family and your loved ones is really what we're committed to.
Yeah, that is huge. So when you're saying it was, I'd forgotten about the piece about a lot of times your personal brand can be something that ticks you off and something that you're passionate about. It was addressing an injustice of the world. That was a really good reminder. I've got to think on that. I forgot about that. Casey, let me ask you this. If you could tell the world one thing, speaking of that, like whether it's something that ticked you off, whether it's an injustice or just something you really want to get out there, what would be that one thing you tell it?
For myself personally, or honest, like the one thing I'm so committed to is that people don't give up on themselves. 100%. It's a series of seasons. Whatever you're going through right now isn't forever, and it's just fueling, or redirecting you to really more of a calling. I really believe that. I've never worked for anyone else since the age of 23. I've always worked for myself, serving others. I've always been in the service space. I have a foundation in hospitality. So, talk about a visual of serving, but it's an amazing foundation to really cultivate, how to sell, how to talk, humility, rejection, all of those things. And it's easy to give up, but I'm a 100% commitment to people never giving up on their own greatness. Super important.
Wow, that's powerful. That is a powerful. I think there's people that are probably listening right now who really needed to hear that. So I'm glad that you said that.
Good.
So talk to me about what's next. What's next for you? What's next for Brand Builders?
So Brand Builders continues to build out new programs. Rory Vaden, who's one of our co-founders, just has such an amazing ability to identify needs in the world. And if it's not being served, he creates the most amazing programs. As you know, you've experienced a handful of them with him. And I feel so incredibly blessed and fortunate to be a part of this Brand Builders team. So we're really committed to building more personal brands more than ever in 2021. We've increased the number of events, the repetitive, we repeat our events multiple times throughout the year. So our Finding Your Brand DNA event, which is the stepping stone to building your brand, that's offered every other month right now. And if the demand is there, we'll do it every month. That's our goal, to offer that every month. We also have a new offering where we can actually do custom private events with a minimum of 5 participants for the same cost of going to an event with us. We'll create a private event for you with the same content so that you don't have to wait until it hits the calendar. That's something new for 2021. And it's pretty dynamic. Yeah. Super excited.
I'm very interested. Okay.
Yeah, I was fortunate enough to speak to a physician who had a small practice, and they didn't want to wait for the next event. And I saw it as an opportunity, and I said, well, let's do a private one. So it's kind of middle range between the event and like one-on-one. The higher the intimacy, the higher the price point it will be. So we're just going to continue to serve as many people as we can in this space all over the world. And we're out there on other people's podcasts like yours, introducing ourselves to the world of people who don't know us and we don't know them yet.
Sure.
Certainly our referral program is amazing. And if we're doing our job well, we have clients that have been very generous to us by referring business to us. So we love that so much. And like I said, Rory's creating two new programs by the end of 2021 that I'm not going to talk about yet, but just looking for ways to serve people more. I just recently launched Remarkable Resilience, which is a program that I offer through my personal brand in helping people have breakthroughs in the face of breakdowns. It's all founded in gratitude and taking ownership and getting empowered, and then creating that reinvention using resilience as a tool and what the future looks like. They get to design the life that they choose once they break through the spaces of setback, loss, and failure.
Sure. Wow, that's powerful. Boy, the world really needs that right now. I'm so excited you're launching that. That's amazing.
I hope you got some amazing information from our interview today, and I've set up the next video for you. So I'll see you over there at the next video.